Welcome to All Things Work, where we are recording at Talent 2026 in Dallas with a special live audience. Can we get a round of applause from our live audience today? Yay! Thank you, guys. So we've seen it all happen. A project falls short, a deadline just whooshes by, or the results just simply aren't there when we finish that project. For managers and workplace leaders, the go-to explanation often centers around maybe a lack of effort or a lack of motivation amongst employees. And we may assume everybody just needs to work harder, get better. But what if that assumption just misses the mark entirely? Hard work does not always guarantee that success. And when we expect to pure effort to fix systemic communication gaps, it can really create friction across teams, impact those project outcomes, and lead to disconnect throughout the entire process. So instead of addressing the root of the problem, we risk placing blame on employees who could actually excel so much better with improved alignment. So the problem isn't so much about the effort or lack thereof, it's more about the direction. And today we're challenging the conventional wisdom around performance issues. We will break down actionable steps to address the three major points of alignment, or the failure points of alignment, and how to shift our mindsets in a daily practice to ensure every ounce of effort drives real value. And joining us to walk us through this process today, we're not going to do it alone, is Joe Rotella. Joe, you are the Chief Value Officer at Delphia Consulting. Welcome to All Things Work.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here because I love talking about managing and not just reviewing performance. And I see this all the time. A team that they're motivated and they're smart and they work incredibly hard, and then they miss the mark. And nobody can figure out why. And the first leadership thing people say is, oh, they needed to work harder or try harder or put more in. And usually that's not the problem.
Usually. And so, Joe, let's get to the core of today's topic. You argue most performance problems are often caused by that misalignment, as you mentioned. What does that look like in the average workplace setting?
You know, I think that's the challenge because it looks totally normal. It looks like everything's on track, everything is going well, you have team meetings, you talk about it. The problem is people are just reporting on status or activities that they've completed, but they're not really talking about what it is they're trying to solve and are they making progress towards that island, the vision, the end goal. So I think that's the big challenge is it looks just like normal until it all goes south.
So let's turn over to our audience. How many of you raise your hand that, you feel like everybody put in the effort, there's so much work around this, but when it came to the end goal of that project, you didn't really come to the results that you were looking for and people were kind of left confused? All right, quite a few of you. What does that say when you see those?
Yeah, I see it all the time, and I see it happen in situations where even the leaders, the coaches feel like they're right on top of it because they're really good at asking, how's it going? How's it going? You good? Everybody good? You're good? I'm good. Okay, let's talk next week. Everything's good. And they get a false sense of security because they're just asking about status, not really alignment.
So let's address the work smarter, not harder elephant in the room. You mentioned in your work that even the most highly motivated person essentially can waste their effort if they're putting their effort in the wrong things. So how does this misalignment manifest in a team setting? What are those telltale signs leaders really should be looking for with this misalignment?
So I think, again, it's when folks just hear, it's okay, everything's okay. And team meetings are the worst because the agenda is the seating chart. Do you have meetings where the agenda is literally, okay, how are you doing? Okay, Stacy, how are you? Mike, great, how are you? And at the end, the coach says, okay, everybody's good, let's good, see you next week. Why isn't that agenda about this is the end goal? This is what we're trying to focus on. And maybe they're just going to talk to one or two folks that week because they're really focused on that goal and someone else doesn't get much airtime. And that's okay. But we're really always talking about the end deliverable, what we need that end deliverable to be, and not just the activities. Because otherwise in these meetings, everybody seems busy, everybody's working hard, they're all coming to the meetings, and they're all checking the boxes, but maybe what they're delivering is just a little bit off the mark. So that's the tough part, is it looks normal, and it looks like everything's good until suddenly it just blows up.
And it feels like sometimes when we're working so hard, we're so busy, it's almost like a badge of pride. Like you're coming off like you're doing your work, but that doesn't always mean it's leading to success.
Yeah, and it could be, in some cases, most people think of this as, oh, we missed the mark and it was a bad thing. But I can give a personal example where our CEO asked me to deliver a kind of a report, a topic, a summary on something. And I can go down a rabbit hole better than anybody you've ever met. I mean, are any of you like that? You're insanely curious. So once you start something, you just go deep. You're Google, Wikipedia, AI, you're all over the place. So I really worked super hard on this, and I ended up producing like this 10-page report, all documented. I had citations. It was like a mini dissertation. And when I gave it to the CEO, and he didn't realize how it hit me, because he said, wow, I was really hoping for just like a paragraph or a couple of bullets. I mean, this is good. This is good, because he could see the whole, wind deflate out of my whole system. But I wasted so much time and effort, and it's because I wasn't clearly aligned on what he wanted from the get-go.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. So in your framework, you address the three key failure points when it comes to the alignment process in the life cycle of a project. You framed this across three distinct moments. Can you walk us through those three failure points, starting with the expectation phase?
So that example was really good. I didn't have clear understanding of the expectations. And I talk about this a lot. I'm working on a book where I talk about it. I like the phrase, clarity is kindness. Clarity is kindness. So when I got that assignment, oh, here you go, I need to better understand this, give me something. That's not clear. So in this case, I overachieved. But it's so easy because managers think they just tell you to do something and they figure, oh, we hired you because you're good at what you do. You understand what that means. But you might not have the same understanding of what that means. So clarity is kindness. It really helps to know right out of the gate, what does it take to win? What does it take to be successful? What would you consider success? So I think the first failure is right out of the gate, making sure there's a mutual understanding of what it takes to win.
So let's dive into the second failure point during the execution phase. Why does it seem like projects are really on track until that moment they kind of go off the rails?
Until they go south.
Until it goes south.
I think it's because coaches are asking the wrong question. I think I've recorded a ton of one-on-ones. And the thing I hear over and over again, I could do it with you. We could role play it in. How's it going?
It's going well.
It's going well. Good. Okay. So everything's good. You're good. Work's good.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. I'm good too. So let's do this again next week. That's a terrible one-on-one. You don't want to use one-on-ones or these conversations to just check on status. You should have systems in place, be it a project management system, a checklist, something where you know what the status is. Instead, a better question is, what are you doing now? What are you doing next? And what can I do to help to make sure there's no barriers? How can I help you succeed? You might mention the end deliverable. We had mentioned that we needed, 1 million blanks. What number are we at today? And do you see any problems in reaching that end number? I don't want to know what you did to get to where we are today. That's totally rearview mirror. Instead, I really want to know, what are you working on next? And what can I do to support you?
SHRM membership. Your edge in a world of constant workplace change. Get access to expert insights, real-time resources, and a global community of over 340,000 HR professionals, so you can stay ahead, make smarter decisions, and lead with confidence. From compliance to culture, SHRM helps you move faster and drive real business impact. Don't just keep up, lead what's next with SHRM. Get your membership today.
SHRM. We have the evaluation phase. This is the third point of failure that can occur. And you kind of touched on it in like your one-on-ones, how to address that. But when it comes to feedback, why is it that so many managers kind of wait till the end to provide feedback instead of during the process?
So feedback in general can be a hot mess. I mean, I'll be honest, I'll ask you, and I'd like to give you some feedback. What's the first emotion you think you feel when somebody tells you, I want to give you feedback?
Concern.
Concern, right? How about out in the audience? Do you feel anybody concern, anxiety, nervousness, defensiveness?
See a head nodding much over
Yeah,
here.
because we're so used to only getting feedback when it's a critique.
Exactly.
So first thing is coaches have to get into the habit of giving feedback on a regular basis every week. What I do it for my folks. I have a Post-it note with all my team members on the side of my monitor. I check off about each one when I give them feedback, good or constructive, and follow the SBIN approach. Describe the situation, the behavior you saw, the impact it had, and what are the next steps. So, and in the doing the podcasts situation, I saw that you came up and talked to me in advance, and it made me feel really comfortable, and I feel so fine sitting up here with you. That's the behavior. The impact, it made me more comfortable as a guest. I think you should really continue to do that going forward. So I think what happens is people hold back on feedback because managers know when they deliver it, they think it's supposed to only be constructive. You don't want to hear it, so your amygdala goes off, you do fight or flight, and then we actually never make people feel good about sharing what's going on. So you have to give feedback often. SHRM now calls it feed forward. Don't focus on that rear view mirror. Don't spend all the time saying what I saw, what you did wrong, this is bad. Quickly, the situation, the behavior, the impact, and focus is what are we going to do in the future, be it the same thing or a change.
And for our audience who may struggle with giving that good feedback, do you have any additional suggestions on the other ways to provide feedback, and especially while also trying not to micromanage your employee, right?
So micromanagement is a toughie. I have a recording on demand for SHRM credits, and all of my recordings are free, and it's all about micromanaging. No manager starts the day saying, I'm going to work today and I'm going to micromanage. I mean, that's just not how it works. It comes from FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so as a manager, I need to be able to feel confident. You're doing the right thing. I know you've done it. I have no doubts. That you should be using a system for, right? Don't just ask, because otherwise you're asking about, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you yesterday? Are you going to do it tomorrow? That's micromanaging. And it feels like someone's breathing down the back of your neck when you're trying to run a marathon. So instead, make the intent be, how can I help you? Where are you now, and how can I help you continue to get to that specific deliverable? Don't ask just about status, and make sure that it's in a way where you're encouraging, I'm here to help. And if necessary, set up front, and you have this assignment, you have 6 months to do it. How about every month we'll talk about this specific thing? Now you know it's going to be an every month thing.
And in addressing misalignment issues in the workplace, whether you're the employee or you're the manager or you're the higher up person, it's not something you fix in a day. It's a habit you have to get into. So why is this not such a simple fix? And what are some of the habits, all of us, whether we're the individual worker or the manager, that we can really get into to start improving this process?
I think it has to start with clarity. And I say it all the time, clarity is kindness. And so especially if you're the employee in this situation, it's okay to say, let me make sure I understand what we're really trying to deliver here. So my marketing manager's name's Laura. I love Laura. She's super talented. She's great. So I go to Laura and say, Laura, I want you to increase my number of LinkedIn followers within 6 months. And we might think that's a pretty good goal, right? Increase in 6 months and has a timeline and sounds kind of smart. So Laura comes back and says, oh, I added 200 followers. I have 17,000 followers. So I'm like, Laura, that's awful. 200? That's like nothing. I was hoping for like 1,000. That was my fault. I wasn't clear. So in this case, I need to make an effort to be really clear. And Laura could come back and say, okay, so you want me to increase the number of followers. What number are you thinking of? Or I might say, don't say, Laura, did you understand the goal? Yes, increase number of followers. That's not helping. Just playing it back is not helping. I need to say, what would success look like for you? What are you thinking? She might say 500, and I'll say, ooh, I was thinking more like 2,000.
Yeah.
But what are we doing now? We're discussing it to make it clear. So right out of the gate, start a habit of making sure you feel really clear what that deliverable is. And I would write it down. Right? It's either a number, bigger is better, smaller is better, or stay in a range, or it's a checklist, right? Next, I think it's making sure that those conversations have intent. Managers don't go into one-on-ones typically with intent. They see it pop up on their Outlook. How many of you feel this way? You go to a one-on-one, you could be on either side of the fence. It pops up on your Outlook and you just join the one-on-one and you're ready to go, right? There was no intent. You're in talent. How would you feel if you were a candidate and you went to an interview and the person never looked at that resume till the interview started? These are moments that have to be intentional. So as a coach, I need to think about, okay, I'm going to meet with Ann in 15 minutes. What is it we're trying to do? What's the actual deliverable? How do I measure success? And how can I find out, are we on track, and what can I do to help? So during execution, make sure it's intentful coaching and not just fly by.
So when it comes to making this mindset shift in the organization, trying to, you know, create these daily habits to improve alignment, how is that so critical, not just for your team, not just for your direct relationship with your employee, but for the overall organizational success? And how can our audience really take the thoughts we're sharing today and bring it back to their boss and say, this is why we need to do this?
You know, you're never going to change culture by mandate. You can't just say, starting today, we're all going to do this. That doesn't work. You can't go for buy-in, because we've all seen people go for buy-in. You've been in a meeting, somebody's pitching something, and everybody starts to sit with their arms crossed, you know, and I'm from New York, but if they're from the South, they're thinking, bless your heart, aren't you precious? I ain't doing that. There's no way I'm doing that. So you have to, Japanese call it nimawashi, get people involved from the beginning. So I would go back and talk to coaches or employees and have a sample one-on-one, just like we did. How's it go? Let's do a one-on-one. Let me see you. How's it going? Oh, and then discuss it. And instead say, what if you just change that opening question to be, what do you think it takes to win? That's it. Change one little thing at a time, little by little by little. That's how you change culture. So I would go back and talk to folks about having a little bit more intentful conversations. And I think when that happens, you'll see that with the same amount of effort, you're actually going to get much better results, and you're going to get the results that you actually have been aiming for all along. So it's really about having intent. And I think it really starts with clarity is kindness.
I love the clarity is kindness. I'm going to remember that. So you talked about how the manager can really kind of, instead of just doing it for them or telling them what to do verbatim, you know, you'd said, you know, asking them the question, well, what do you think is the best solution? So for that employee, if we're flipping the page here, who just wants to make sure they're doing it right and wants to make sure they're aligned, but they don't want to come off like they're asking the manager to hold their hand through the process. Because that's my fear as an employee, is I don't want to come off like I'm incapable, because I think I know the answer. I just need you to confirm it. How do you deal with that? How does an employee make sure that they're not getting to that level of like, hold my hand through this process, make sure I'm doing it right, please, boss?
You know, I think it's okay for the employee in this case to say, here's what I did, here's the impact or the results I had. Do you have any tips for how I might have gotten even better impact or better results? So I don't think you have to do it from a questioning, did I do this right or wrong? Instead, this is what I did, this is the impact I'd had, or these are the results I got. Any tips for what I could do next? So I'm always trying to focus both the coach and the employee on the future, the windshield view. I mean, I hope when you drive, you spend more time looking out the windshield than you do the rear view mirror. So let's just focus on, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do different? How are we going to achieve this goal? So I think if the employees could get in the habit of framing it as, this is what I did, that's the impact I had. It's sort of that SBIN, situation, behavior, impact, next steps. Focus on that, but keep focusing on the future, the next thing. And I think the coach has to do the same. And I think for coaches,
Kind of stepping in every now and then when it comes to performance reviews, because we know that they're only once or twice a year for some companies. You know, do you agree that once or twice a year is enough, or do you suggest a different way to approach performance reviews from an organizational perspective?
you know, I think for me, the review itself, the document, the form, is just an artifact of a process. And so once or twice a year, I'm okay if you want to produce that written artifact. But I want you to have the conversations, because performance management doesn't happen at the review. It happens in the space between the reviews. So let's make sure that we have a tool that captures those conversations, that helps direct them, that records, oh, you finished a goal, I'm giving you a 5 out of 5, here's my comment, and let that roll into the artifact. Because the problem is now, we set goals, we say in January. If they're cascading, I doubt any of you have them done in January, because you wait till higher ups get them done. It's usually February, March, April, May. And then people are still working, they're not doing nothing. And then in June, you pull out the form, you go through it. Then you tuck it in a secret alcove. Nobody pays attention to it till the end of the year. And then it becomes like a scene from a science fiction, right? HR folks put on a cloak and they pull out I've got the reviews, here's the reviews. And then your whole job for many HR folks, not the business professionals, is who did it? Joe did it, Ralph did it, Ann. Ann didn't do it. Ann never does her reviews on time. Oh, I wish I could fire Ann. There's no value in that in your role, right? Instead, teach people how to manage performance in the space in between. And I think that comes from conversations, clear expectations, really good coaching, right? And continually telling someone good or constructive feedback and capture it along the way.
So when it comes to that coaching language, what are some keywords like that you would think are really kind of remove that personal take of constructive feedback and really break down that barrier that because people put their guard up when they're getting feedback. Let's be real. What are some of those coaching words, those coaching language that helps improve that alignment, break that wall down a little bit?
I think if you can, I know I've said it a couple times, stick to that S-spin approach. Focus on the situation you saw, the behavior they had, and the impact. Because that takes the person out of it. I'm not saying, Ann, you did a terrible job. I'm talking about a situation. I saw you in this one situation. I saw this behavior, and here's the impact it had. So you can imagine you're in meetings, and I say, Ann, I noticed in the presentation you gave yesterday, which I thought was really good, the content was great. You really look down all the time at your notes, and I know you know this stuff really well. I think when people see you looking down all the time, they don't connect with you, and I saw them kind of drift. I think you could really convey your message if you kept eye contact. So in the next meeting, I know you're shy, try to look up at least 3 or 4 times. You know what? In fact, I'm going to stand in the back, and every 10 minutes, I'm going to go like this, and you're going to have to look at me, and that'll make eye contact, and let's do it together, right? So I really want to focus on a behavior and an impact it had, and what to do next, not the person. Because you as a person are great and you have value. It's just in this one situation, maybe something went south. Or be sure you tell them the positive, and then we'll teach our amygdala to not instantly, when you hear feedback, be like, okay, whoa, it's coming now, right? So it's just building that routine, that structure.
SHRM certification, the global standard for HR professionals ready to lead with impact. Whether you're building your foundation or driving strategy, SHRM certification validates what you can actually do on the job, not just what you know. Stand out, grow your career, and turn HR expertise into real business results. Get certified. Get recognized. Lead the future of work with SHRM. Get certified today.
SHRM. So when it comes to that manager trying to get that employee to stay aligned, but maybe, and they think they're being extremely clear, but they're just not, it doesn't seem to be getting through to that employee. How do they address those frustrations? Because naturally it would be a frustrating process, right?
Yeah, I think it's okay for either side of that equation to say, I have a concern. I want to make sure we're really clear on what the deliverable is. And if the manager is concerned, don't just say, I think the deliverable is blank, 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 right? That's not going to work. Instead, say, let's talk, what do you think it takes to win? What exactly, or how will you know you nailed this? And then if you say, well, I don't know, we know we have a clarity problem. If you say, well, I thought it was deliver ABC, and I'll say, well, I think it's really DEF. Here, let's talk about why we see, what's the difference? And sometimes it comes down to why. Simon Sinek has a really great podcast on why. People have to know why you asked them to do a certain task. How does it connect to some bigger goal, some issue? You might be thinking DEF because you think I'm in the weeds, because you don't understand, oh, ABC, that makes sense. Somebody else needs my output for them to do whatever they're supposed to do. It just keeps coming back to clarity and making sure you're both clear. And just saying, did you hear me? Repeat after me? That's not clarity.
No.
Right? So make sure they express it in their own language. I think that makes the most sense.
Would that also make sense for the employee if they're trying to get their manager to be clear on that alignment? Because maybe if they think they're asking all the right questions, but they still don't get it, or they're still not finding that clarity. Is that kind of a similar approach you'd say the employee should take?
And I think for coaches, I think in a lot of jobs, we don't do a good job teaching our coaches. We promote people and they just assume they got it right. And as someone who has no kids, just because you were a kid and have parents doesn't mean you make a great parent, right? I mean, I've seen in the grocery store where the mom's like, touch that one more time, you're going to get it. Touch it one more time, you're going to get it. And after about the seventh time, I really want to go up and say, I'm going to beat this kid if they touch that one more time. And I know you can't do that. I know you can't do that. Don't get me in trouble. But you're thinking, you're doing a terrible job here, like sticking, teaching what expectations, consequences, those things. So I think we promote folks and assume just because we promoted them, they know what they're doing. You've got to train people on how to be a coach. And I don't think it's a one-time thing. In alignment, it's not like setting your GPS. That's not the end goal. The end goal is to get to the destination. So what do? You check the GPS all the time. That's what alignment is all about. It's not about setting the GPS. It's checking it while you're on the journey.
So how do managers really like coach and communicate when they just feel that shift, right? They see something up ahead. Maybe the E team told them, hey, this is changing with the business partnership, or something else is changing externally that's impacting our work internally. How should people really communicate that shift?
I think the key is giving the why. I think if you change direction on folks and you don't clearly articulate why that's happening, I think employees see it as, yet again, change in directions. They don't know what they're doing up there. We're just like zoom, zoom, zoom. But if you can communicate, okay, this thing happened. Maybe it was beyond our control. Maybe we didn't expect it. But here's the why. And because of that why, we need to be agile and adapt. Here's the consequences if we don't. And sometimes it's okay to ask. We're thinking to be adaptive. We have to do this instead. But you're in the trenches. What do you think? You know, I think a lot of times managers have to realize typically it's the employee doing the job that knows a better answer than what the management team knows. And I find that in the case of, I'm going to go back to HR folks, not my business professionals with expertise in HR, but I've talked to folks where they've said, I review my job descriptions every year. I review them, we're on top of them, they're clean. And I'll take one and say, well, let's go ask, so Ann, I have your job. Let's just read this. So Ann, your job is blah, 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 blah. And use this machine. And you're like, we don't even have that machine anymore. And then work with so-and-so. Oh, they died. They're not even here. And it's because a manager wrote that job description, but they never actually talked to the person doing the job. And sometimes that person knows what's best. It's really great communication. I think all this comes down to really great communication.
Yeah, I like that, explaining the why behind it.
Why is really important.
So we were talking about this before we even started our episode.
Oh.
You're talking about how so many people, when we all went remote during COVID, the pandemic, it's kind of hard to get people back, right? A lot of people are still remote. And we have a wonderful senior labor economist at SHRM. His name's Justin Ladner. He studies the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and he found that, still about 22% of our workforce is teleworking in some form, whether that's hybrid or that's remote. So you're talking about all these communication methods. Is there any challenges you see with trying to communicate, trying to do this feedback, trying to stay aligned with your remote employees or your hybrid employees?
Yeah, I think it's so important remote. Our whole company, we're in 15 states and everyone is home-based. And in a remote environment, it becomes too easy to just pop onto Teams and literally say, how's it going? What you doing? Everything okay? And for the employee that gets that message, it feels like micromanaging. And it's because in a physical environment, you can walk past someone's office or see them at the water cooler in the break room and just be like, oh, what you doing, Ann? How's it, how's it going? Mm-hmm. And that feels different than when it just pops in as an instant message at some point. So I think it's that having intent. And I try really hard in my case to not constantly message my employees to say, how's it going? What I really want to do is say, can I do anything to help you today? Is there anything blocking you today that's in my control? Mm-hmm. And coaches that constantly cancel one-on-ones in the last minute, that's ghosting somebody. And as an employee, you feel terrible. You're like, uh-oh, must have been really important. I wonder what they're doing that they couldn't really talk to me. Or there's no agenda, so you just click on and you wonder remote, What are we even going to talk
You
about?
feel like they're checking off a box. And
So be intentional with how you spend your time. And with remote folks, be intentional about those communications, right? So there's times I'll message your remote folks and say, hey, Laura, reaching out just to find out, how did everything go this weekend? Last night you went to a concert. How did it go? Not just how's it going in general, because she doesn't even know what to respond then. And our phrase, what's our big phrase? Clarity
is kind.
Clarity is kindness.
Well, thank you, Joe. And that's all for this week. We'll catch you next time. If you enjoyed our conversation today, be sure to subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcast so you never miss a new episode. Also, did you know All Things Work is more than a podcast? That's right, we're also a weekly newsletter that includes in-depth articles and the latest research from SHRM to keep you in the know. Just head to shrm.org/allthingswork to sign up. Plus, follow SHRM on social media to view the latest clips and join the conversation on game-changing topics that are redefining the world of work.
SHRM.